Hey, what's up guys? Manga Archives here for my review of chapter 127 of Eden Zero, which this chapter was amazing. I mean, it wasn't as great as chapter 125 was. In fact, I don't think anything's going to be as good as chapter 125 for a long time. But this chapter was great. I think the only thing that was really holding this chapter back for me was the fact that we had to wait a week to get it, because this chapter was very, very reliant on the emotions that we were feeling at the end of chapter 126 when we found out what happened to Jin and Klein in their past when they were basically kidnapped by Dr. Muller and tortured. And I feel like that if this chapter had came out the same week as that chapter, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, back in the fairy tale days, Hero would often get times where he would get 2 chapters in 1 week. And I feel like that if we had gotten that for these 2 chapters, it would have basically benefited them more, because, basically the emotions that we felt at the end of chapter 126, which, I don't know about you guys, but after I got done reading that chapter, I really felt bad for Jin and Klein. In fact, at the end, I was basically giving Dr. Mueller the finger saying, fuck you, I can't wait for you to die. Which I didn't expect him to die so soon, but still. But anyway, get back to the topic. I really think that if we had gotten these chapters together, it would have actually hit harder on the emotional aspect than, having a week apart, because basically by having a week apart, you kind of forget what happened because other things happen. You're reading other manga, watching other series, and other things in life kind of just get in the way, and you kind of put that on the back burner until the next chapter comes out. And then when the next chapter comes out, so much has happened in the last week, you're like, wait, what happened at the end of the last chapter? I had to go back and revisit, and honestly, you're not going to get the same kind of emotional response from reading it the second time as you would have gotten from reading it the first time. Okay, so getting into the chapter, obviously we got the cover page, which is a nice illustration of Sister in a place where it actually kind of looks like it's a rich mansion in the background. There's a lot of pictures of like fancy looking people. So I'm wondering if those characters actually have anything to do with her backstory, or if those are just random character designs that Hero came up with that kind of fill the backspace. But it was actually interesting seeing that image, and I'm really hoping that those characters actually do have something to do with Sister's like creation and her backstory, and we actually find out more about her history, future arcs. But this chapter actually was very heavily focused on Sister, and basically we start off with her trying to figure out exactly how to heal Klein, because she's still having her mental breakdown, and she's losing strength faster than Sister can heal her. Now, I gotta give it to Sister in this chapter, because her resolve to save Klein is just top tier character right there. Because, alright, she basically says, alright, I can't save her this way, I can't heal her the normal way, so the only thing I can really think to do is basically she makes a digital copy of Klein's memories. I think that's what she said. She like digitized them, and she's planning on diving into her memories to figure out exactly what the cause of her trauma is, because obviously Jin won't tell her, which I don't understand why. Real quick rant. I don't understand why Jin, and literally in this moment, won't explain what happened in her backstory. Why won't he tell her exactly what happened? Because obviously Sister needs that knowledge in order to find a way to actually heal Klein in a permanent state. So by holding back that information, I've talked about this before, like when we first got to reveal exactly what was wrong with Klein, and the fact that Jin was having Sister take a look at her and try to find a way to fix her. By not revealing that backstory, not revealing exactly what the cause of her trauma is, it's just hindering Sister's ability to basically help. So why not just tell her? I don't understand the mentality, especially in this situation where it's do or die. But like I said, I really have to hand it to Sister in this chapter, because even though Jin is being a complete idiot by not telling her exactly what she needs to know in order to help Klein, she still resolves to help her, even if it means risking her own life. Because what we end up finding out is that basically by digitizing her memories and choosing to dive into them, if she doesn't know an exact point to basically dive into, then she runs the risk of basically diving into kind of like an empty space in Klein's memories, and just kind of dying off by not being able to escape from it. And she still resolves to do that, even though she knows the risk, because of the fact that she, one, promised Klein and Jin that she would save them, and two, she is determined not to let anyone who's part of the Eden Zero crew die, even if they are temporary members like Jin and Klein. And I think this actually is a result of her lingering feelings to the fact that by the time they found Valkyrie, she was too far gone for even Sister to do anything to help. So I think the fact that she lost a member of her family is really driving her forward to not lose another one ever again. Now, lucky enough for Sister, just before she's about to dive into Klein's memories, Herman's comms come back online, and she overhears the conversation that Herman is having with Dr. Mueller about Jin and Klein's past, and that gives her the exact location that she needs to go to when it comes to year-wise to Klein's memories. So she goes back 10 years to when they were children, and she gets to see firsthand exactly what Dr. Mueller did to Jin in front of Klein, and the fact that he was basically, not only was he trying to turn Jin into an Otek, he was intentionally doing that in front of Klein in order to figure out exactly what kind of emotional response he would have as a way to basically further his experiments. So yeah, I will say it again. Fuck you, Dr. Mueller, because I mean, this chapter really makes you hate him even more than it did before. And speaking of that piece of shit, we actually cut over to the satellite and continue his fight with Wise and Hermit. And I gotta hand to Wise, he actually was throwing a lot of punches in this chapter and actually doing some damage to Dr. Muller. Even though in the last chapter he couldn't do anything in his arsenal suit, in this chapter he not only manages to land a punch, but he also manages to cut Dr. Muller in half. But just like in the last chapter, even though it looks like Wise is doing something against Dr. Muller, at the end of the day, Dr. Muller reveals that his attacks aren't really doing anything to him. Even when Wise cuts him in half, he's like, well, I mean, I'm an OTEC, so that's not really going to do much to me. I could just, repair my body later on. And during the fight, he actually manages to hit Wise with an attack that basically knocks him out of his arsenal suit for the most part. And now that he's out of his arsenal suit, he can't move anymore because his body's so paralyzed. And in the beginning of their fight in this chapter, I had actually forgotten that Wise needed the arsenal suit to move because of the fact that he was still paralyzed, which brought up the question, wait, in the chapter when he activated the arsenal suit for the first time during this arc, didn't he say that he had a very limited time frame when he could use the arsenal suit because of the fact that he was going to be using a lot of ether energy due to the fact that he, one, the arsenal suit already takes up a lot in itself, but two, he was also using his ether gear ability to move the arsenal suit since his body couldn't move on its own. And considering the fact that he has a very short time frame on how long he can use the arsenal suit already in its normal state, doesn't that mean that he shouldn't have been able to use it anywhere near as long as he did in this chapter? I mean, or in this fight, really? And then, I guess we don't really know exactly the time frame of how long this fight actually lasted, which is the problem with anime and manga. The fight can actually last as long as the creator wants it to and still say that it was only like maybe 2 minutes. I mean, look at Dragon Ball Z. We have fights that last for like episodes upon episodes, and they say that's only been like 10 seconds. But still, if I'm going to be a fair critic, I got to bring up the things that don't make sense, and this is one of the things that really don't make sense. Like, if the whole shortened time frame thing of the usage of the arsenal suit was going to be such a non-issue in this arc, then he shouldn't have brought it up in the first place. He should just let Dr. Muller destroy the arsenal suit in this chapter like he did in the chapter, and just not, when Wise originally brought up the arsenal suit, mention that at all. It could just been a cool plot point that, even though he was paralyzed, he found a way to move by using the arsenal suit, and then just, a few chapters later find out that that wasn't enough to defeat Dr. Muller. Now, luckily for Wise and Hermit, even though Wise's arsenal suit was destroyed and he was basically just kind of paralyzed now, Laguna shows up and actually saves the day by basically using his water abilities to electrocute Dr. Muller through the loose wiring that was basically out now that Wise has cut Dr. Muller in half. So that kind of paralyzed him as well, left him basically motionless on the floor. And then Laguna uses water ability to lift Wise over to Dr. Muller, and then Wise uses his ability to basically deconstruct and destroy Dr. Muller in this chapter, which was such a fitting end. Like, I actually think he deserved worse. I think Wise should have actually done a lot worse than him than basically explode him. But, he got what he deserved. And this was actually a really cool scene between Laguna and Wise, and I'm wondering if this is going to lead to Wise being more open to Laguna, Klein, and Jen, because now, one, he already knows the backstory to Klein and Jen, found out from Dr. Muller himself exactly what he did to them, turning them into an OTEC and basically, or turning Jen into an OTEC and making Klein watch as he ripped Jen apart piece by piece. So hopefully going forward, he's going to be a little more sympathetic to them. And as far as Laguna goes, now that Laguna actually saved him and Hermit from being killed off by Dr. Muller, maybe he's going to kind of just bury the hatchet of Laguna being an ex-member of Draken Joe's gang and kind of just let him be like a temporary, if not somewhat permanent member of the team. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's a long time before Wise is actually considering those three as friends, but I can imagine that basically going forward for the next few arcs, he's going to deal with them the same way that kind of like Natsu and everyone dealt with Gajia when he first joined up with the Fairy Tail Guild, where they weren't really hostile towards him, but they weren't exactly too friendly with him. Oh, and at the end of the chapter, we got another little cute scene between Herman and Wise, kind of adding a little bit more ship fuel to the fandom that ships those two characters. It was a really nice, touching scene between the two of them, and it could really be interpreted, as a brother-sister relationship or kind of like budding romance between the two. It's really up to your interpretation. Now, even though at the end of the chapter Dr. Mueller's been defeated, things aren't still over just yet, because before he died off, he actually activated a doomsday device on Planet Foresta, which is basically making it explode from the inside out. And now Shiki, Homura, Rebecca, Happy, Pino, and that little girl that they saved are now on the run towards the Eden Zero ship, along with Master Zenolith, who, once the doomsday device activated, he kind of just turned himself off. Like, he literally just sat down and just kind of like deactivated himself, and Shiki now picked him up and is like running towards the ship with him. And it's kind of gonna be an interesting plot point in the next chapter, because they are basically just leaving all those robots and humans to die on the planet, and I'm sure that somehow Wise and Hermit are gonna find a way to basically deactivate the device. But still, I would imagine that at least a few dozen people had to die during the activation, or during the time that the device is actually activated, before they could turn it off. So there's going to be some tragic deaths or some tragic like stuff going on, and I could potentially see if there's a little girl that's actually with them right now. If she does actually have a family member that's still alive on Faressa, I can imagine that maybe they're going to end up dying during this whole activation of the Doomsday device, and it's going to make her a permanent member of the team, kind of like how when the former crew of Eden Zero found I'm blanking on the name. Wow, found Elsie and kept her on for a few weeks. I imagine they're going to do the same thing, but possibly keep her on for a longer period of time. Fans actually really grab onto this character. I don't know. I'm interested in finding out exactly what Hero's plan is with this little girl. Is she actually going to be a plot character going forward? Like, is she actually going to be a member of the team? Or am I just kind of like, grasping at straws and basically just, she's just a non-character who's just here for this arc and not going to be important in the next 2 chapters? But anyway, guys, that's it for chapter 127 of Eden Zero. Like I said, this chapter was amazing, and I cannot wait to read chapter 128. I think it's supposed to come out next week. As far as I'm aware, there's no planned delays or planned breaks for Eden Zero. So look forward to my review for next week's chapter. But that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about this week's chapter. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.